The world is a safer and better place when America is the strongest military power in the world.
We spend more on our military than the next 10 countries combined.
What new things did we learn this week?
We need to try the free market. The free market, where people actually have to compete.
We heard some sensible answers.
If you raise the minimum wage, you're going to make people more expensive than a machine.
And some less sensible ones.
The wall will be built. The wall will be successful.
This candidate has some baggage with me.
For you to call these people cronies is very unfair. And I think it's a pretty sick assumption. And I think it's pretty jaded for you to make it.
I am jaded, but happy that this candidate
I wouldn't arm our enemies.
finally said what many libertarians think.
How is it conservative to add $1 trillion expenditure for the federal government?
The elephants in the room, the good, bad, and ridiculous. The people running for president have started to sound more sensible. Some of them, anyway. My choice, Rand Paul, finally broke out of his stupor and at this week's debate pushed back at Republicans who want to have our military police more of the world. Republicans like Marco Rubio.
There are radical jihadists in the Middle East beheading people and crucifying Christians. A radical Shia cleric in Iran trying to get a nuclear weapon. The Chinese taking over the South China Sea. Yes, I believe the world is a safer... No, I don't believe. I know that the world is a safer and better place when America is the strongest military power in the world.
Big cheers, and Rubio sure speaks well. When I hear him speak, I want to believe, but the more I think about what he says, the more dubious I get. We're already the strongest military in the world. How much more can we afford to spend? I was glad Rand Paul said this.
You can be strong without being involved in every civil war around the world. But you know, we spend more on our military than the next 10 countries combined.
That's pretty incredible. By my count, it's just the next 9 countries combined. But either way, we're already spending much more than everyone else. Since America's going broke, I think Europe could start paying for its own defense, but that's just my opinion. Let's turn to our panel of experts. I call them experts because they spend all day obsessing about politics, so we don't have to. Ben Dominic runs the website The Federalist. Dagan McDowell reports on lots of things at Fox Business. And Matt Welch is editor-in-chief of Reason magazine. So, Matt, you must have been happy to see Rand Paul speaking up finally.
I did. I mean, you said stupor at the beginning, and that's exactly it. He's been sort of morose all along, and he seemed to be much more of a happy warrior there. And Rubio also was good in that exchange. And then Ted Cruz got in between them. The 3 Tea Party senators staked out different territory there on the foreign policy debate, and that's as they should. And so I was very glad he did that.
Well, 2 of us, at least, I don't know what your politics are, Dagan, are clearly...
I like it when people fight, so it just... and intelligently.
But all the Republicans seem to want to go to war as much as Hillary does.
You know, it was good to see Rand stand up. I think he had the worst performance of any of the debates in the previous one, and this was his best by far. But I feel like what you're really seeing there is the consequences of a Republican Party that has not grappled with the lessons on domestic or foreign policy of the George W. Bush years. Part of that's due to the fact that there wasn't a vice president running on the ticket before. Part of it's due to the fact that you had 2 nominees, John McCain and Mitt Romney, who didn't have a direct tie to the Bush administration. But when it comes to foreign policy and when it comes to domestic...
What does this have to do with going to war?
What I think it really has to do with is that Marco Rubio is up there saying essentially the exact same things that you could have heard if you learned nothing since 2008. And I think that Rand Paul was calling him.
And Rand Paul also points out that we have to talk about, given the level of debt that we have in this country, sacrifice. That you can't have it all.
Nobody's talking about sacrifice.
That's why he went after Marco Rubio on increasing that child tax credit. And he said, oh, well, and he said that's welfare. And he called it exactly what he said. Oh, it's refundable from the payroll tax. Well, guess what? We're going to lose about $1.5 trillion because of that. So if you want a strong military, where's the money going to come from?
It begins to sound like, from Marco Rubio, the same kind of stuff that the Democrats do, just a different emphases. But like, you can have all the free stuff. We can do this giveaway here to the middle class. We can have the triple world's strongest military or whatever. The other thing Rand Paul did in that exchange, which was great, was talk about no-fly zones. What does that mean? Everyone loves just, let's have a no-fly zone. He's like, do you realize what that's going to do? It means we're going to have to shoot down Russian planes over Syria. What is wrong with you? And I think that put everyone on their heels in an important way.
And they're also the people who are favor of no-fly zones are agreeing with Hillary Clinton on that. And
Yes.
he pointed that out in the debate.
And when we talk about these, how much we spend compared to other countries, just to list them is amazing. It's more than China and Russia combined, plus Great Britain, France, Japan, India, Saudi Arabia, Germany, and South Korea combined. It ought to be enough.
I think the American people are in favor of having a strong military, but what they really
We've got one.
What they really care about is how it's used. And I think in this case, what we've heard from Marco Rubio over and over again is that he's going to use it and use it a lot in a lot of places. I think that the opportunity here is to build off of this and to maybe have a further debate about what kind of foreign policy the Republican Party should have going forward.
And there's also the question of how it's spent. I mean, we spent all that money, but we spent it incredibly inefficiently because people are so deathly afraid of going after a specific weapons program. There's a lot of corruption in that process. Rand Paul didn't bring that up, but he should have.
My favorite was Donald Trump on this, where he said, we have to make our military bigger, better, and stronger than ever before so nobody messes with us. Then later on, he says, we don't need to be the world's policeman. We need to spend money on infrastructure. And I think President Obama has said we need to spend money on infrastructure in every single speech he's given since he was inaugurated.
Even before, probably.
Well, speaking of cuts, one fun part of the debate was when the normally eloquent Ted Cruz messed up. He tried to list the 5 agencies he's proposed to cut.
5 major agencies that I would eliminate: the IRS, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and HUD, and then 25 specific programs.
Well, you probably noticed he said Department of Commerce twice. He forgot to mention Department of Education, which should be cut. Later, he tried to laugh off his slip.
Look, I just think the Department of Commerce is such a base of cronyism. We need to eliminate it twice.
And that's a good point, because commerce just happens voluntarily. You don't need a department.
And it's huge. We ran a cover story a year or so ago. Like, what are they building in there? It's the Department of Commerce. What do they actually do? It's very hard to figure out. I would like the fact that Ted Cruz is out there being specific about what to cut, because as when Republicans say, "Oh, I'll have a balanced budget amendment," no, you won't, because it'll never pass, and you never elucidate what you're going to cut. He and Rand Paul were singled themselves out by
and
being
Cruz
specific.
names things like Green Infrastructure Program, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Catfish Inspection Program, and all that. I think he could cut more. We got a Department of Transportation, Labor, Agriculture. We can have agriculture without a department. Why don't they propose cutting that? Because the farm lobby is too important.
But this goes back to your point earlier. The fact that Marco Rubio is engaged in this type of, let's just have entitlements for our people. If there's going to be takers, let them look like us, effectively. It sets up a scenario where you're just going to be sending more money to families, sending more money based on your own priorities of how you think the country should look, and yet you're not willing to stake out, here's what I'm willing to cut to pay for that. Here's what I'm willing to cut back so that I don't have to tax other people more.
Ted Cruz got a good dig in at Rubio indirectly about the sugar subsidies.
Exactly.
That was right at home base. That was right over the plate, buddy.
Rubio never defended it exactly.
No, because he can't defend it. That's why he didn't bring it up, I don't think.
And he didn't make it direct.
He didn't make it direct.
He just
it was clearly about
laid
him.
it right there, and it was for him.
I felt like that was a setup for a future debate.
And if you don't know, Rubio takes money from the Fanjul family and supports the zillions of dollars the sugar industry gets and shouldn't get.
I was just going to say, with Cruz, he flubbed up on mentioning commerce twice. It's what you bring to the table. People believe he's an intelligent man. He is an intelligent man, and so they let it go.
Rick Perry flubbed, and he only was cutting 3 departments. The clear favorite now to get the nomination is Marco Rubio. Now, how do I know that? He's behind Trump and Carson in the polls, but turns out polls are a shallow guide, just a snapshot of some people's opinion today. Prediction markets are much more likely to tell us what will happen in the future. Prediction markets operate much like stock and commodities exchanges. They're more accurate predictors because lots of people participate and put their own money on the line. Prices change constantly, but today's price is the best reflection of what the future will bring. In America, no good prediction market exists for politics. That's because foolish American politicians banned internet gambling. So for the best political predictions, we have to go to a market based in England. It's called Betfair. And useful as it is to us Americans, it's basically unintelligible because the prices are in pounds and it's tough to understand who's ahead. But look at this website. This is understandable. That's because Fox producer Maxim Lott converted Betfair odds into percentages so we Americans can process them. As you see, Hillary Clinton's a huge favorite to win the Democratic primary. And on the right, you see she has more than a 50% chance of becoming our next president. In the middle are the odds on the Republican primary. Marco Rubio is about 20 percentage points ahead of Donald Trump. Then comes Ted Cruz, then Jeb Bush, Ben Carson, and the others. Sadly, my choice, Rand Paul, is near the bottom. You can check these odds on my website, johnstossel.com, anytime. They update every 5 minutes.